Ethan wiped the sweat from his brow as he leaned over the controls of his small cargo shuttle. The bustling space station spun slowly around the gas giant below, its neon lights reflecting off the glass domes and metal walkways. Merchants shouted from their stalls, aliens of all shapes and colors haggled over goods, and traders rushed through the crowded corridors, carrying rare minerals, alien spices, and mysterious technology. For Ethan, it was just another night trying to survive in the heart of the station. The market was ruthless, and every day felt like a gamble. He had been struggling for months. His small cargo shuttle could barely carry enough to pay for fuel, let alone his rent at the station's cheap but crowded living quarters. Each day was a cycle of buying, selling, and hoping he didn't get cheated. Or worse. Yet, tonight, he felt a strange sense of anticipation, though he didn't know why. Something was about to change. It started when he heard a voice, soft, melodic, yet carrying an authority that made him look up immediately. "Ethan, I presume?" He turned to see a woman standing beside the market's edge. At first he thought she might be a station employee, but the way she moved, the elegance in her posture, and the faint shimmer of her skin told him otherwise. She was not human. Her eyes glowed faintly with a golden hue, and her hair seemed to float slightly, as if it had its own weightlessness. Her clothes were simple but elegant, and there was a subtle energy around her that made the air feel different, charged. "Yes," Ethan said cautiously, straightening up. "Do I know you?" She smiled faintly, but there was no warmth in it, only purpose. "No, but I know you. I've been watching you. I have a proposal, one that could change your life if you are willing to take it." Ethan raised an eyebrow. He had heard all kinds of strange offers before, but something in her voice made him stop. She didn't sound like a con artist or a scammer. There was a seriousness that demanded attention. "What kind of proposal?" he asked, trying to keep his tone neutral. The woman's eyes softened just slightly, and she spoke carefully. "I am Lyra. I owe a debt, a very large one, to a powerful interstellar syndicate. They will not forgive it. My only chance to survive, to repay them, is to enter into a companion contract with a human for 2 months. In exchange, I will provide you with wealth, access to rare technology, and opportunities that could change your life." Ethan stared at her, blinking. The words didn't fully register at first. 2 months? Companion contract? Wealth? It sounded like something out of a Hollow novel. But then he realized she was serious and dangerous. The kind of danger that could either destroy him or lift him out of the endless struggle he had been living. "Why me?" he asked, trying to hide the surge of hope in his voice. "Why would you offer this to me?" Lyra's eyes held his, steady and unwavering. "Because I believe you can handle it. Because you are resourceful. Human resourcefulness is different from what we see in my people. I need someone who can think, adapt, and survive when everything seems impossible." Ethan's heart skipped a beat. This was insane. But it was also the opportunity he had been waiting for his entire life, a chance to escape the endless grind of survival on the station. He didn't hesitate. "All right," he said. "I'll do it." Lyra tilted her head slightly, as if evaluating him. "You accept without hesitation. That is admirable. And unusual." They left the market together, walking past the crowded corridors and docking bays. The closer they got to her ship, the more Ethan realized how advanced it was. Unlike the bulky shuttles of the station, Lyra's vessel was sleek, almost organic in design, glowing faintly with a soft blue light along its hull. It hummed with quiet power, a ship that seemed alive, aware of its passengers. Inside, the ship was equally impressive. Smooth, flowing lines shaped the interior, and the air carried a subtle fragrance that Ethan couldn't identify. Screens and panels floated holographically, responding to Lyra's gestures without touch. He felt a mixture of awe and nervousness. "You'll need to understand a few things before we begin," Lyra said as she guided him through the ship. "First, this contract is legally binding in the eyes of my syndicate. If either of us fails, the consequences will be severe. Second, during these 2 months, we will face challenges, both from them and from others who might try to exploit me. Third, our partnership is built on trust. I will not lie to you, but you must also act with honesty and courage." Ethan nodded, absorbing the information. He had lived a hard life, but he had never faced anything like this. He felt a thrill of excitement mixed with fear. "I understand," he said. Lyra regarded him silently for a moment, then nodded. "Good. You may rest for now. Tomorrow, we begin our journey." Ethan found a small cabin and collapsed onto the bed. His mind raced with thoughts of what was to come. 2 months, wealth, adventure, danger. The weight of the decision settled on him, but he didn't regret it. He had chosen to step out of the ordinary, to take a chance. The next morning, the ship's engines hummed as they left the station behind, entering the vast expanse of space. Ethan watched as stars stretched into streaks, the station shrinking into a small dot behind them. He felt a mixture of fear and exhilaration. For the first time in years, he wasn't just surviving. He was living. Over the following days, Lyra began to teach him about her world. She explained the nature of her species' debts, how they were not just financial obligations, but legal and cultural ones, binding individuals and families for generations. She described the syndicate, a powerful network of enforcers who operated across star systems, and how dangerous it could be if they discovered any weakness. Ethan listened carefully, fascinated. He had faced danger before, but nothing like this. He realized that survival wasn't just about fighting. It was about strategy, understanding, and knowing when to act. In turn, Ethan began to show Lyra the strengths of humanity. When a minor system error occurred on the ship, he improvised a fix using tools that were meant for entirely different purposes. Lyra watched in amazement as he solved the problem with nothing but logic, creativity, and intuition. "Human ingenuity is remarkable," she said quietly. "I can see why you were chosen." By the end of the first week, their relationship was still strictly professional, but a bond had begun to form. Ethan respected Lyra's strength, intelligence, and determination, while Lyra recognized Ethan's courage, adaptability, and reliability. They were learning from each other, understanding that survival depended not just on individual skill, but on trust and partnership. Then came the first real test. A band of space pirates ambushed them near an asteroid belt. Their ship was fast, but the pirates were aggressive and heavily armed. Lyra prepared to defend herself, but Ethan saw an opening, a narrow pass through the asteroids that the pirates couldn't navigate easily. He suggested a daring maneuver, guiding the ship through the twisting, rocky corridor. It was dangerous, but Ethan's instincts proved correct. The pirates were caught off guard, colliding with debris and losing formation. Lyra watched as Ethan calmly controlled the ship, making split-second decisions that saved them both. When they emerged from the asteroid belt, the pirates defeated or gone. Lyra turned to him, eyes wide with admiration. "You are remarkable," she said. "Your species has a strength I underestimated. Courage, creativity, and something more, heart." Ethan smiled, feeling a warmth in his chest. He had risked everything, and it had worked. But he also realized that this was only the beginning. 2 months might seem short, but in the vastness of space, every day would bring new challenges, new threats, and new lessons. As they continued their journey, Ethan looked at Lyra and understood something profound. This arrangement, this contract, was more than a means to wealth or survival. It was a test, a chance to prove that humanity, with all its flaws and strengths, could stand toe-to-toe with the dangers of the galaxy, and he was ready for it. For the first time in his life, he wasn't just a survivor. He was part of something greater, something that would test his limits, challenge his mind, and reveal the true strength of being human. And as the stars stretched endlessly before them, Ethan felt a thrill of anticipation. 2 months. Countless possibilities. And the promise that, no matter what, humanity would rise to meet any challenge. The stars outside the ship stretched into long white lines as Ethan and Lyra traveled farther from the station. The vastness of space pressed in around them, silent and unyielding, yet full of possibilities. Ethan spent his time learning more about Lyra's world, and she began to trust him in ways she hadn't anticipated. Lyra's people were highly disciplined, their society built on precision, honor, and rules that governed every aspect of life. Debts were not just financial. They were sacred bonds that could determine a person's fate. She explained that her family's honor, her own safety, and even the lives of those she cared about were tied to her ability to repay this enormous debt. Ethan listened carefully, trying to absorb every detail. "You see," she said one evening as they floated near a small moon, the ship's lights reflecting softly off its surface, "my people value logic and order above all. But humans have a different kind of strength. You are chaotic, yet effective. You improvise. You adapt. You survive even when nothing is in your favor."
Ethan shrugged. "I guess we've had to."
"Life isn't easy where I come from. You learn to make the most of what you have." Lyra's golden eyes studied him. "And yet you seem brave in ways I have never seen. Courage is not enough. You have intuition. You act when others hesitate. You inspire others without even trying." Ethan felt the strange warmth at her words. Compliments from Lyra were rare, but they carried weight. He realized that he was beginning to understand her, not just her words, but her culture, her fears, and her hopes, and she was beginning to understand him in return. Their growing trust was soon tested. A distress signal pinged on the ship's console, red and urgent. Ethan leaned forward, reading the message. It was from a small colony ship under attack by raiders. The message was short, desperate, and clear. "We need help."
"Please. They're killing everyone."
Lyra hesitated. "We should not interfere."
"It is dangerous, and the raiders may be connected to my debt collectors. We risk drawing attention." Ethan looked at her, his mind already racing. "We can't just leave them. Humans don't stand by when others are in danger. We can help, and we can do it smart. We just need a plan." Lyra regarded him silently. There was a long pause, then she nodded. "Very well. But we must act carefully." The colony ship was caught in the middle of a field of debris from a destroyed asteroid. The raiders, heavily armed and aggressive, surrounded it, their weapons firing relentlessly. Ethan and Lyra moved quickly, weaving their ship between the debris and using the shadows to approach unnoticed. Ethan suggested a maneuver that seemed impossible. "We can sneak in through the debris field, disable their engines, and create a diversion. If we time it right, they won't even know what hit them." "You are confident, human. Let us see if your instincts are as strong as your words." Ethan guided the ship through the debris, twisting and turning in ways that defied expectation. The raiders fired at them, but the ship's advanced shields absorbed the blasts. When they reached the colony ship, Ethan coordinated with Lyra to deploy small drones that disabled the raiders' engines. The raiders panicked, colliding with asteroids and each other. By the time the raiders regrouped, Ethan and Lyra had rescued the colony ship, towing it to a nearby safe zone. The colonists cheered, their gratitude overwhelming, and Lyra looked at Ethan with a mix of surprise and admiration. "You did well," she said quietly. "You saved them. Your species has courage that inspires others to act. Even the weak can find strength when guided." Ethan shrugged modestly. "We just did what we had to do." But Lyra knew it was more than that. Humans were unpredictable, resourceful and daring. She had underestimated the depth of Ethan's bravery, and in that moment, she felt something shift. Trust was no longer enough. Respect had grown, and with it, a quiet bond. The next few weeks were a blend of travel, learning, and preparation. Ethan adapted quickly to life on Lyra's ship, mastering controls, understanding alien technology, and learning to anticipate dangers that even seasoned humans would have struggled with. Lyra, in turn, began to rely on him, not just for his skills, but for his judgment and humanity. One day, as they traveled near a dense nebula, Lyra spoke of her past. I was not always this desperate. I had a family, a life of promise. But mistakes, misjudgments, they have consequences. The syndicate does not forgive, and so I am forced to act in ways I never imagined. Ethan listened, realizing that her vulnerability made her stronger, not weaker. She had survived threats and challenges that would have broken others, yet she carried herself with grace, intelligence, and determination. I can help you, he said quietly. Not just for the contract, but because I believe in you. Because I know humans, we don't give up easily. We fight, even when it seems hopeless. Lyra regarded him silently, the faint glow of her eyes reflecting the nebula's light. You truly are different, she said finally. You do not act out of fear or self-interest alone. You act out of something more. Something I have rarely seen among my people. Perhaps humanity is not just survival. It is strength of spirit. The conversation was interrupted by the ship's alarm. Sensors indicated an incoming vessel, a scout from the syndicate. They had tracked Lyra's movements and were closing in fast. Ethan's hands flew over the controls, analyzing the options. We can't outrun them. They're faster, he said. But we can outsmart them. Follow my lead. Lyra watched as Ethan implemented a plan that combined timing, physics, and deception. He guided the ship through the nebula, using its dense gas clouds to hide their path. Then he deployed decoy signals that mimicked their ship's energy signature, leading the scout on a false trail. The plan worked perfectly. The scout followed the decoys, giving Ethan and Lyra time to slip away undetected. Lyra's eyes widened in amazement. You are incredible. Your species thrives in ways I cannot always predict. That is power I have underestimated. Ethan smiled, feeling a surge of pride. Humans adapt, we survive. And sometimes we fight for something more than just survival. Lyra was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, I am beginning to understand. The syndicate may have strength, but they lack your creativity, your courage. Perhaps this contract, which I thought was mere survival, is teaching me something greater. About humanity. As the days passed, their bond continued to grow. They shared stories of their worlds, laughed at strange customs, and faced challenges together. Ethan's human intuition and adaptability proved invaluable, while Lyra's knowledge of alien systems and strategy guided their decisions. Together, they became a team that no ordinary force could easily defeat. One evening, while observing a distant star cluster, Lyra turned to Ethan. I must admit, when I first approached you, I saw you only as a means to an end, a human capable of fulfilling a contract. But now I see you as something more. You are not just a companion, you are a partner, a protector, and a teacher. You have shown me the strength of humanity in ways I never imagined. Ethan felt a deep warmth in his chest, and you've shown me that even in the vastness of space, life has meaning when we trust and fight for each other. That's something humans value too. Their partnership, forged under pressure, was transforming into something neither of them had expected. It was no longer just about a contract, a debt, or survival. It was about trust, courage, and understanding. Humans had survived for millennia because they adapted, they fought, and they cared. Ethan embodied that truth, and Lyra was learning it firsthand. The final test of Part 2 came unexpectedly. A distress beacon from a nearby planet indicated a rebellion against a powerful mining corporation. The rebels were outnumbered and outgunned, but the corporation's control over the sector was strong. Lyra hesitated. Intervening here is dangerous. The corporation may be allied with the syndicate. This could expose us. Ethan looked at her, determination in his eyes. We've already seen that humans don't wait for permission. We fight when others need help. If we act smart, we can help without getting caught, and we can't ignore those who are suffering. Lyra nodded slowly. Very well, then we shall intervene. But remember, this is more than survival. This is a test of strategy, courage, and heart. Together they began preparing, combining Lyra's alien technology with Ethan's human ingenuity. They crafted a plan that used distractions, precise timing, and psychological tactics to turn the tide in favor of the rebels. Once again, Ethan's creativity and daring proved decisive. The rebels were saved, and the corporation's forces were scattered. Lyra looked at Ethan with awe. Time and again, your species proves that strength is not only in weapons or power. It is in mind, in heart, in courage. Humanity truly is remarkable. Thus, Ethan smiled, feeling a quiet pride. He knew the journey was far from over. The syndicate still loomed, and the 2-month contract was only halfway through. But for the first time he understood that humans had a unique power, one that could change outcomes, inspire allies, and survive against overwhelming odds. Lyra, once burdened by debt and fear, now looked at the universe differently. With Ethan, she was learning that humanity was more than just flesh and emotion. It was resilience, ingenuity, and the courage to act even when hope seemed impossible. Together they traveled deeper into space, ready for whatever came next. The challenges ahead would be greater, the dangers more real, and the tests of trust and courage more intense. But they were no longer simply two beings navigating the stars. They were a team, united by purpose, courage, and the quiet but undeniable strength of humanity. And in that vast, silent void, Ethan felt something he had never felt before, that no matter the odds, no matter the enemies, humans had a way of surviving, adapting, and triumphing, even in a universe that seemed determined to crush them. Space was silent, but for Ethan, silent never meant peace. The vast emptiness outside the ship was deceptive, hiding dangers that could strike without warning. Lyra sat beside him in the control room, her golden eyes scanning the sensors, her fingers dancing across holographic panels. Ethan had learned to trust her instincts. They were precise, methodical, and sharp. Yet even the sharpest instincts could be outmatched when the enemy was cunning. The syndicate had discovered their path. It had taken weeks for Ethan and Lyra to notice subtle changes in their communications and the trails left by other ships. But now it was clear. The syndicate had sent an elite strike team. They were fast, highly trained, and merciless. Ethan could feel it in his gut. Their hunt was no longer distant. It was real, and it was coming for them. "Ethan," Lyra said quietly, her voice calm but tinged with tension, "we are being tracked. They know our location, our speed, and possibly our plans. This is no longer a simple pursuit. We must prepare for confrontation." Ethan nodded, gripping the controls. "I've been thinking about that. We can't outrun them forever. We need to outsmart them. We need to fight smart, not just fast." Lyra tilted her head. "Smart is good, but sometimes courage, human courage, is needed as well." Ethan smiled faintly. That was something he had learned in these past weeks. Human courage was different. It was not just fearlessness. It was determination, creativity, and the refusal to surrender even when hope seemed gone. It was what had allowed him to save the colony ship and the rebels, and now it would be needed again. They plotted a course through a nearby asteroid belt, one that was notoriously dangerous. The syndicate's strike team would expect them to take the easiest path, a straight line through the void, but Ethan had a different plan. Using the ship's advanced systems and Lyra's knowledge of alien navigation, he mapped a route that twisted through the dense asteroids, forcing any pursuer to navigate hazards they couldn't anticipate. The day the strike team arrived, their ship's sensors lit up with dozens of incoming contacts. Ethan's heart raced, but he remained calm. "Lyra, follow my lead. Trust me." Lyra nodded, hands moving over the controls as they executed the plan. Ethan's voice guided them through the asteroid maze, calculating angles, timing maneuvers, and predicting enemy behavior. The syndicate ships, while fast, were rigid in their tactics. They had never encountered humans who thought this way, creative, adaptive, and unpredictable. As the pursuit intensified, Lyra watched Ethan's mind work. He wasn't just piloting the ship, he was anticipating every move, using the environment as a weapon. "You are remarkable," she said quietly, almost to herself. "Your species, your humanity, is beyond calculation. You create possibilities where none should exist." Ethan glanced at her, feeling the weight of her admiration, but not letting it distract him. "Keep focused. We're not done yet." The battle was brutal. Asteroids collided. Energy blasts tore through the void, and alarms blared as shields strained under fire. Ethan's ingenuity turned the tide. Using the ship's drones, they created illusions of multiple ships, confusing the strike team. They lured some ships into asteroid collisions and disabled others with precise bursts from the ship's experimental weapons. Lyra, usually the calm strategist, found herself relying on Ethan in ways she hadn't expected. His ability to improvise, to think like a predator and a prey simultaneously, was unmatched. She realized that humans had something her species often lacked: instinct paired with imagination, courage paired with heart. When the last of the strike team was neutralized or scattered, Ethan guided the ship to a small hidden outpost on a moon covered in ice and rock. They landed safely, though battered, and Lyra exhaled, finally allowing herself to relax. "You saved us again," she said. "Every time I think we are at our limit, you find a way." "This is human strength." Ethan leaned back, wiping sweat from his brow. "We saved us. Together." For the first time, Lyra smiled genuinely. It was small, subtle, but it lit up her face. She realized that the 2 months she had planned as a simple contract were becoming something far more meaningful. Humanity, embodied in Ethan, was teaching her that survival was only part of life. Trust, courage, and ingenuity were what made life worth living, and what could change destiny itself. In the days that followed, Ethan and Lyra repaired their ship, studied new systems, and prepared for the challenges ahead. The strike team's attack had shown them how ruthless the syndicate could be, but it had also proven something crucial. Humans were not easily defeated. Their ingenuity, adaptability, and courage allowed them to overcome even overwhelming odds. Lyra shared more of her past with Ethan. She spoke of her homeworld, once a thriving planet now controlled by debt and corruption. She spoke of family she had lost, opportunities squandered, and mistakes that had forced her into this desperate situation. Ethan listened, never judging, only understanding. Humans survived by learning from mistakes, by taking chances, by refusing to accept the impossible. Lyra began to see that this was why she had been drawn to him. Not just his skills, but the essence of humanity itself. "You inspire hope," she said one evening as they watched a nebula swirl in the distance. "Humans have something my species rarely possesses, the courage to act, even when defeat seems certain." "You have changed my understanding of what strength truly is." Ethan shrugged. "We do what we must. We fight, we adapt, and we try not to give up. It's not always perfect, but it works." Lyra considered his words, realizing they contained a truth her people often overlooked. Strength was not only measured in power or technology, it was measured in spirit and the willingness to act when all else seemed lost. Humans embodied that strength in ways the galaxy had rarely seen.
Their next challenge arrived sooner than expected. Intelligence reports indicated that the syndicate was mobilizing a larger force, more coordinated and deadly than anything they had faced before.
Lyra's debt collectors were not just hunting her. They were coming to make an example, to show that no one could defy their will. Ethan studied the data, analyzing every detail.
We can't fight them head-on, but we don't have to.
We can use our environment, our speed, and our unpredictability. We can turn the table if we act smart.
Lyra nodded. I trust your judgment, Ethan.
Your human instincts. They have saved us before. They may save us again. They planned meticulously. Using the asteroid belt as a natural barrier, they set traps and created false signals to mislead the enemy. Ethan designed maneuvers that required split-second timing, creativity, and perfect execution. Lyra coordinated with him, providing alien insights that complemented his human intuition. Together, they became an unstoppable team, blending technology, strategy, and courage in ways the syndicate could not anticipate. When the attack finally came, it was more brutal than anything Ethan had faced. Syndicate ships emerged from the void, sleek, heavily armed, and merciless. Energy beams cut through space, debris collided, and alarms blared continuously. Ethan and Lyra danced through the chaos, their minds and reflexes working in perfect synchrony. Ethan's human ingenuity was the difference. He lured enemy ships into ambushes, used the asteroid belt to his advantage, and improvised weaponry tactics on the fly. Lyra marveled at his ability to predict the enemy's moves, to adapt instantly, and to act boldly when hesitation could mean death. As the battle reached its climax, Ethan risked himself to save Lyra's ship from a direct strike. Maneuvering through a narrow canyon between two massive asteroids, he guided the ship in a daring path that no alien pilot would have dared. The enemy was destroyed or scattered, and they emerged victorious, battered but alive. Lyra looked at him, awe in her glowing eyes. You embody what I could not have imagined.
Your species humans. You fight with heart, courage, and brilliance.
You inspire strength in ways I never thought possible. Ethan smiled, exhausted but exhilarated. We don't just fight for ourselves. We fight for each other. For what matters. That's what makes us strong. That night, as they floated silently through space, Lyra reflected on everything she had learned. The Syndicate's threat had been immense, but humanity had shown her a strength her own people rarely displayed. Courage, adaptability, empathy, and ingenuity. The human spirit could overcome almost anything. The 2-month contract was no longer just about survival or debt. It had become a journey of discovery, a lesson in the power of humanity, and a test of trust, courage, and heart. Lyra understood that whatever challenges remained, she was no longer alone, and she had learned that humans were capable of extraordinary feats when they believed in themselves and each other. Ethan, too, felt a profound sense of purpose. He had proven that humans could rise to challenges that seemed insurmountable. He had inspired allies, outwitted enemies, and survived against overwhelming odds. Humanity, he realized, was more than just flesh and thought. It was a force that could change destinies, challenge the galaxy, and triumph where others would fail. Together, Ethan and Lyra prepared for the next phase of their journey. The Syndicate still loomed. Danger was far from over, and the clock of their contract ticked steadily onward. But they faced it differently now. Confident, united, and strengthened by the undeniable power of human courage and ingenuity. And as the stars stretched endlessly before them, Ethan knew that humanity, in all its flawed, chaotic, brilliant glory, would rise to meet any challenge, even the mightiest forces in the galaxy. The emptiness of space stretched endlessly before Ethan and Lyra, but silence no longer brought comfort. It was a calm that preceded storms, and they both knew it. The syndicate had recovered from their earlier defeat, and was now sending the full weight of their power to finish what they had started. The elite strike team was gone, replaced by warships, armed with devastating weapons and shielded by advanced technology. Every alert on the ship screamed, danger. But Ethan's heart thrummed with determination. "This is it," Lyra said quietly, her golden eyes reflecting the cold light of distant stars. "They are coming for us. There is no retreat this time." Ethan studied the sensors, analyzing the enemy's positions.
"We've faced them before, but this is different. We can't just react."
"We need a plan that hits them where it hurts, uses their strengths against them, and, most importantly, turns the unexpected into our advantage."
Lyra nodded.
"Then we shall do it together. You lead, and I will follow. Your human instincts, I trust them." Ethan smiled faintly. He had learned a long time ago that humans thrived when they relied on each other, when courage and ingenuity worked together. Lyra was no longer just a partner in a contract. She was a true ally, a comrade, and now someone who understood the same truth. Survival in the galaxy depended not on raw power, but on creativity, adaptability, and courage. They approached a massive asteroid field, one that the syndicate believed was impassable. Ethan's plan relied on that assumption.
"We'll lure them into the field," he said.
"Their ships are bigger, slower, and predictable. The asteroids will be our allies, and every twist and turn will be a trap." Lyra's hands moved quickly over the ship's controls. "You truly are fearless, human. Your strategy is bold, but I see your reasoning." The first wave of syndicate ships appeared on the sensors, sleek and menacing. Their weapons glowed red in the distance, aimed directly at them. Ethan guided the ship smoothly into the asteroid field, dodging massive rocks with precision, the hull creaking under the strain of sudden maneuvers. The enemy followed, confident in their strength, unaware of the traps Ethan had set. He had modified their ship's drones to appear as separate vessels, creating decoys and false signals that scattered the syndicate's focus. Every obstacle was calculated, every diversion intentional. Lyra marveled at his ability to manipulate the battlefield. "Human creativity is extraordinary," she murmured. "I see now why your species survives where others fail. You do not fight like the predictable. You fight like the wind, everywhere, unseen and unstoppable." Ethan focused, guiding them deeper into the field. Asteroids collided with enemy ships, while their own drones disabled shields and engines with precise strikes. The Syndicate's warships, confident in their superiority, found themselves trapped in a web of unpredictability. Ethan had turned the odds completely in their favor. But the Syndicate was relentless. A massive battleship broke free from the formation and fired directly at them. Lyra's eyes widened as alarms blared.
"Ethan, we can't dodge that!" Ethan's mind raced.
"We can if we use the environment. Watch!" He piloted the ship through a narrow corridor between two enormous asteroids, using their gravity to slingshot the vessel and redirect the incoming blast. The explosion erupted harmlessly behind them, shaking the ship but leaving them intact. "You are brilliant," Lyra said, her voice a mixture of awe and relief. "Your humanity, it is unmatched. I underestimated the depth of your strength." Ethan nodded, his focus never wavering. "This isn't about strength. It's about cleverness, courage, and timing. That's what humans bring to the fight." The battle raged for hours, and Ethan and Lyra executed maneuver after maneuver, each one more daring than the last. They disabled ship after ship, turned enemy weapons against them, and inspired nearby alien allies who had been hesitant to act. Humans had a way of inspiring others, an unpredictable bravery that could ignite courage in even the most cautious beings. Finally, only the Syndicate's flagship remained. It was enormous, heavily armed and bristling with energy shields. Lyra studied its systems, analyzing weaknesses, while Ethan calculated the perfect approach. We can't just attack it head-on, but if we use its own shields against it,
we can create a chain reaction that will disable the entire ship.
Lyra's fingers moved with precision. I trust your judgment. Let us end this. Ethan piloted the ship toward the flagship, dodging blasts and weaving through space debris. He guided Lyra's drones to latch onto the enemy ship's hull at critical points, while he triggered the ship's energy systems to reflect the flagship's own weapons back at it. The strategy required perfect timing, absolute trust, and nerves of steel. As the flagship fired again, the energy beams hit the drones, which redirected the blasts into the ship itself. A massive explosion rocked the flagship, tearing through its hull and disabling its systems. The remaining syndicate vessels, witnessing the destruction, retreated in panic. Victory belonged to Ethan and Lyra. Lyra looked at Ethan, her eyes shining with admiration. You are more than I could have imagined. Your species, your courage, your ingenuity, your heart.
It is what the galaxy needs. You have proven what humanity can achieve.
Ethan smiled, exhausted but triumphant. We did it together. Humans are strong, yes, but we are strongest when we fight for something bigger than ourselves, and with allies we trust. The aftermath of the battle was quiet. Ethan and Lyra repaired their ship, assessed the damage, and took stock of the galaxy's shifting balance. Lyra's debt was effectively erased. The syndicate had been humbled, their influence weakened, and her freedom was secured.
You no longer owe anyone anything, Ethan said, leaning against the console.
The 2 months, they've passed, and now you're free. Lyra smiled, a rare, genuine smile that lit her face. And I have learned more than I ever imagined. Humanity is not just survival. It is courage, creativity, and hope. You have shown me what my people have forgotten, that strength lies in heart, mind, and the will to act when others hesitate. Ethan nodded.
And you've taught me something too, that even in the most advanced, disciplined civilizations, the human way, adaptable, courageous, unpredictable, can make a difference. We can rise to challenges no one else can face.
Lyra approached him, placing a hand lightly on his arm.
You are remarkable, Ethan. I will not forget this.
Your spirit, your humanity, has changed my life. Ethan felt a warmth in his chest. The contract, once a simple arrangement to repay debt, had become a journey of growth, courage, and understanding. They had faced impossible odds, battled ruthless enemies, and survived because of trust, ingenuity, and human spirit.
Maybe that's the point,
he said quietly. Humans aren't just survivors. We're fighters, creators, and inspirers. We prove that even when everything seems against us, we can rise. Lyra nodded, her eyes reflecting distant stars. And now, perhaps, we can take that lesson beyond ourselves. The galaxy is vast, but your species, humanity, can make it better. You have shown me the true meaning of strength. As they set course for new systems, the universe stretched endlessly before them. Danger remained. The galaxy was still full of challenges, and the future was uncertain. But Ethan knew something profound. Humanity had a unique power, one that could shape destinies, inspire allies, and triumph where others would fail. For Lyra, the journey had transformed her understanding of life, strength, and freedom. The syndicate had been defeated, yes, but more importantly, she had learned that courage, ingenuity, and empathy, the hallmarks of humanity, were forces that could overcome even the greatest threats. Together they traveled toward the unknown, no longer bound by debt or fear, but guided by trust, experience, and the undeniable truth that humans could rise to meet any challenge. Ethan had proven that humanity was more than just flesh and thought. It was a force, a hope, and a light in even the darkest corners of the galaxy. and as they looked out at the stars, Ethan and Lyra knew that their story was far from over. New adventures awaited, new dangers would come, but the lessons of courage, ingenuity, and heart would carry them through. Humanity had triumphed, not just for themselves, but as an example to the galaxy. In the end, the 2-month contract had become something far greater than either of them could have imagined. It had become a testament to the strength of humanity, a story of survival, ingenuity, and the courage to rise against impossible odds. And Ethan knew, with a quiet certainty, that humans would continue to rise, to adapt, and to triumph wherever the stars took them.